Okay, I'm going to start with a little poem that's really old by an ancestor to Rumi, Hafez, and I love his poem about the sun. You might know it. See, the sun never says to the earth, "You owe me." Look what happens with a love like that. Look what happens with a love like that. It lights the whole sky. Look what happens with a love like that. It lights the whole sky. Even after all this time. I go through one more time. The sun never says to the earth, "You owe me." Look what happens with a love like that. Look what happens with a love like that. It lights the whole sky. Even after all this time. Yeah, yeah, yeah. When I see the sun rising up behind that long horizon line, I hear the call from a little bird, singing in morning light. I lean to hear another bird reply. Another bird reply, another bird and fly, another bird and light, and another bird reply, another bird and fly, another bird and light, and another bird and boomerang returning, an echoing yearning is following through the sound of your voice. Calling, learning, flying from falling, learning, gosling, a swan diving to the sound of your voice. Calling.
Thank you, Tommy Jordan. Fabulous. I would like to welcome everybody to our evening. I'm Devin Hartman, CEO of CHERP and the Locally Grown Power Project. Thank you and welcome to all of you who are joining us this evening. This is a live event and we promise to keep it short so that you may watch the presidential debate at 6 o'clock. So we'll be ending this presentation at 5:50 promptly so that you won't have to worry and give you plenty of time to queue up the debates. As many of you know, we are furiously marching toward the realization of the first nonprofit solar panel assembly factory in the world in Pomona. We now have all the machines in place. These last 2 weeks, we've been running electrical wiring and conduit and compressed air to all of the machines. All of that work should be completed in about 2 weeks. And then Jason, the director of manufacturing, and Ron, our chief engineer, will be tuning up and leveling and setting all of the machines for work. So we're within about 6 weeks of being able to make panels in our new factory. But tonight is an exploration in conversation about the power of art to make a real difference in the quality of life in our communities. It's also a fundraiser to help us raise the money for the art that you will hear described this evening. The artists that we're talking to are working pro bono to help us reimagine the American factory in the 21st century. So check the link in the chat to the GoFundMe campaign now to become familiar with how to donate this evening and how to address questions to the panelists. We will be tracking your questions and asking them as we move forward. And my handlers have also requested that I remind all of you that at the GoFundMe button throughout the evening. So it is now with great pleasure that I would like to introduce to you Mary Byerly, CHERP's art director, who will be moderating the evening.
Hi, everybody, and welcome, and thank you for being here tonight. We have here with us some of the artists involved in this project. They want to upend the idea of a factory in some unique ways. I'm excited. CHERP, Locally Grown Power, is a nonprofit factory providing free energy to low-income households, creating living wage jobs, hiring local people with living wage paychecks, working with at-risk members of our community, working in the areas that have been seriously impacted by environmental injustice, and our factory will be a replicable model for invigorating and restoring the hardest hit individuals in our communities. And this factory will be a model to be replicated all across the United States. We are designing unique art projects designed specifically with our prototype factory. How this came about. CHERP began receiving calls from all over the country for information and tours of the factory. Even a retired Navy admiral called us because of the innovations. We could see we needed a way to unpack the information for visitors in our community. Art communicates, art unpacks complicated ideas and allows us to work with people living in the community so they can get involved and get excited and become members of our factory. We wanted to create a joyful place to work. Also, very exciting, the artists, scientists, engineers on this project will be engaging with our local schools as a STEAM project. What's STEAM? It's science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And it's a way of talking about all those things in our school programs. So we are going to be coordinating with school children, with the Dog Gallery, and schools including Pomona Unified School District, which has over 20,000 school children in it. Art lifts our spirits, creates a compassionate and humane workplace, helps us become a center for the arts and sciences for our schools, our children, our community, our workers. Let me introduce you to the panel, and each of them will be talking to you for a few minutes. Our panel tonight includes Bruce Odland, Peter Erskin, Athena Hahn, and Tommy Jordan. And if you came early, in the music you were listening to was Tommy. Okay, Bruce, let me switch over to my PowerPoint. Let me share my screen and we can begin with you. Oops.
While we're waiting, everybody be reminded to go to the chat and check out the GoFundMe page and check out the link so you can donate tonight.
I'm sorry. Okay, wait. I have to go back to the top. Okay.
I'll just start so you can hear my voice while Mary finds the slides. I'm a sound artist. That means that I make things that are made to be listened to, that are made primarily out of sound, and they're made for your ears. And I'm an artist that thinks with my ears. That means that I think about the world, I think about what I hear. I don't think we'll understand our culture until we understand the noise we make. And we treat the noises and the sounds we make like trash, but it's possible to transform them. For instance, here, this is a specially made speaker in Rome where I worked with Peter Erskin, and it's changing the Rome environment and Vespas and buses into a beam of harmony and putting it back into the environment. And that has a very humane effect on the environment. I've been involved with environmental art projects all along my whole career. I think it's very important, and I think that the ears have important stories to tell about the culture that can't quite be seen. So it's possible to think with your ears and think about the culture in a fresh new way. And that's what we hope to do in this challenging and interesting and beautiful project, putting the solar capabilities in the hands of the people most affected by environmental injustice. I'm all behind it, and I want to help and try and create a humane work environment. There's a piece that was done. There's a piece that was done in Greece, in the ruins of the ancient emperor's palace, and turning it into harmony. And this is a nice segue to Peter Erskin's Rainbow. Peter and I have worked together for 30 years, so we really have a wonderful artistic relationship that we want to build upon with this project.
Peter, go ahead.
Your mic might be muted, Peter.
Okay, I'm Peter Erskin, and I work with sunlight, and that's my medium, and the energy source for my art and for my body, as it is for everybody else's body, since we're all solar powered. And so what I want to do in my work is to bring this amazing experience, the phenomena of the rainbow, inside human-built spaces. And when I heard about the CHERP opportunity, it was a great chance to do something. So like Bruce, we worked together in Rome, is the ancient Roman Forum, Trajan's markets. This is two big flat laser cut prisms that are overlapping to create this amazing mixture of color. And it changes with the rotation of the earth. So a minute later, all these colors are slowly morphing. And then, 5 minutes, 15 minutes later, it's gone in another part of the building. The art is responsive to the rotation of the earth. Let's see what the next picture shows something very different. And this is a project that I did in a library here in Lafayette in California. And this is kind of relates to what I want to do at the CHERP factory, as you'll see a couple of pictures of the model coming up. But this is a skylight with a shaft. It's about 10 feet high, lined with 3 or 4 different kinds of flat laser cut prisms that mix the light as it bounces down into millions of new secondary non-rainbow colors. The next picture, oh yeah, that one. So this is the, actually we need to scroll down. We can't see this very well.
Oh, sorry.
Let's go to the next one, that's okay. This is a vertical picture. That was something in the Milan station, but the rainbow was on the floor, so you couldn't see it. This is a project I did in a small Spanish church in a tiny little Basque village, 2015, I don't know. And here you can see in each of the windows, there's a prism mounted, and I reflected the spectrum light up onto the ceiling. And again, as the earth turns, all these spectrum move around and change position from the ceiling down to the floor. And so it's ties people into the natural rhythms of the earth, of living on Earth, which has to do with the rotation of the Earth and the sun coming up in the morning and setting and weather and clouds and things. The next picture is a nearby location that you can't get into now. It's the Fontana Library. This is, I did 2 installations. These are rotunda, reading room rotundas, and the floor below has small, like 18-inch windows in it. And they also have a different kind of prismatic effect, but this was a big screen that I installed, a solar spectral prism material into, and again, the light changes and colors shift momentarily, but subliminally. And so finally, I have 2 pictures of the CHERP model for the factory. I always work with a real hands-on model. You can see the size of it. There's a couple of push pins up on the top holding that air conditioning duct in place. And so in the roof, there's a series of 6 prism cells, which will be projecting solar spectrum light down into the space. And as the Earth turns and the seasons change, the light shifts, as you can see in the next picture. Maybe this is a couple hours later. We had everybody wear white suits in this installation because they show up better in the sunlight. So yeah, I'm really excited about Athena. Contacted me a few months ago, and as soon as I heard about it, since I've been involved with environmental art for as long as Bruce has, it really was a no-brainer, and we are very excited about working together once again to help out and to explore new areas. To explore the idea of making something in a work environment, which is usually the deadest, kind of regimented jail-like place, and we want to make it into a place that people are eager to go to, not to go to work, but because of what they're going to find listening and what they're going to see that's new, which will be fresh every day.
Okay. Athena, let's see if I can get into you. Here we go. Athena Hahn, our local wonderful artist.
Hi, everybody. I'm really honored to be here. And I'm really happy all of you joined us. I feel the sense of community with you. And I'm so happy you're here. So I think primarily I'm a painter, but what I seem to be really good at is connecting dots between things. So for me, this working with CHERP is kind of a dream because it's a place where I can take all these different things that I've experienced and worked with over the years and pull them together and pull different people into that environment, and also imagine new places for different people to be. People from the community and children and different forms of art like music and installation. I mean, Peter was so gracious to return to my absolutely cold email out of the ethers. I couldn't believe it. I really thought someone was pretending to be him. And then he brought Bruce, and Tommy is absolutely always saying yes to everything in the best way that you're curious about. And Devin and Mary are so gracious with what they do that they're absolutely willing to include everybody in everything. So this is a really exciting time in my life, and I hope it is in yours as you find out more about CHERP. This first slide was one of the slides I was making for artists, for them to,
Sorry.
oh no, it's all right. It was just a slide I was making. I didn't know how solar worked, so I had to spend quite a bit of time researching it, which meant I had to learn about photons and all kinds of interesting things. And then I thought, well, let's make this simpler so that other people can know how they work on a metaphorical level. So Mary, you can switch to the next slide. This is another project I thought was going to be simple. I decided to make a periodic table, and I thought I was going to do a pop art piece, just something really big. So this is 118 hand-painted 8x8 inch squares. What I found out was scientists use the periodic table, the colors, there's no standard for it. This is just highlighter pens that when you see the periodic table, they just emphasize the colors that interest them. So I wanted to give people a sense of what I learned about the periodic table by portraying it in a color-coded way. But that's when I thought science was a set thing and a metaphor for that. And as we all know, the more you get into science, the more you know it's like art. And also, science has really come into question these days. So this metaphor for something that we all know collectively really changed throughout the project and over time. This was a mock-up I did for the loading bay for the CHERP factory. And the little houses on the left, we're having, you'll see in the next slide, we're having kids from the community, you know, fold the tops of a piece of paper, something just really simple, and do an image of what makes their home special as a representation of community. And I think with that, we're on to the next thing, right? Oh, yeah, see, I had to get those. I spent so much time painting them, I had to use them again. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
And thanks everybody for being here out there and on the panel.
Thank you. Thank you, Athena. Next, we have Tommy Jordan. If you just want to speak a little bit about your engagement with community.
Well, that photo right there from Max Gerber, that was from a Gegita tour. And on all our tours, I try so hard to do things during the day with kidlets. My twin sister, my little sister, and both their husbands are all elementary school teachers. And I've seen the music programs get sucked away. And that's how I got into music, is just because I happened to raise my hand when they said, who wants to be in the band? Anyways, it's difficult here. Gegita managed to do some, but I've been working with a French band called Bum Cello, which is B-U-M cello. And it was so streamlined to do such things with them. And we'd often do residencies for a day or two or three before our gigs and work with kidlets and kids of the community. And it was a dream come true for me. And when I heard that CHERP was beginning to cross-pollinate between the what needs to be done and what you want to do, and sometimes it's gray, that I just wanted to just help out in any way I possibly could, especially being anchored in California longer. But I'm impressed so much, and I learned so much just in the last half hour from you all. And so I'm there to help. I hope the next Bum Cello record is supposed to be done in Pomona, and maybe it will be solar powered. And the thing I like the most about Bum Cello is because they have lots of guests from all over the world. And so that right there is Vincent Segal, Cyril Atef, and myself on one time. That's actually a radio show. That's not a concert, but they're the rhythm section for a lot of artists from around the world, like Omar Hayat from Morocco, Mama Wenja from Cameroon, Sashila Rahman from India. But anyways, they're going to come to Pomona for their next record. And if it's done in my house, I hope to be solar powered by then.
Maybe we'll have it in our factory, Tommy. Thank
you.
you.
We could play a concert in your factory. If you look up Vincent Segal and Cyril Atef, they've done a lot of wonderful things.
And now let's just turn it back to Devin for 1 second so he can remind people about how to donate today.
Oh, great. Thank you, Mary. Yes, we're just reminding everybody, we're trying to get as many donations in this evening as possible. We have an ongoing GoFundMe campaign that we're launching this evening. We need to raise $25,000 to purchase the materials and technologies necessary for the artworks that you'll be hearing more about here in a few minutes. So double check the GoFundMe button in the chat room and follow that to our GoFundMe page and check it out.
And now at this time, I'd just like to direct a few questions to the artists. And then if you in the audience would like to ask any questions, specific questions to any of the artists, could you please put that into the chat, and we will make sure we can address your questions. So Bruce, you're working currently with the city of Zurich, Switzerland on a train sound mitigation. And what is the importance of sound mitigation in a factory, and how are you proposing that we could possibly make the factory more humane with sound?
Yes, we just opened a piece, Sam Auinger and myself, we go under O and A. We just opened a permanent piece in Zurich that's in the old railroad right-of-way, where we're transforming the sounds of Zurich, jets, trains, people, car, into a harmonic series to make it, reduce it all to one harmony in real time without storing it or anything, just transform it with tuning tubes that we use, using sympathetic resonance. Much like a didgeridoo, imagine the city is playing a didgeridoo, real time. So a low bus goes by and it creates the lowest tone, and a motorcycle goes by and it creates higher tones. And in this way, we're reducing all of the inputs of the city into a harmonious field and putting it back onto the street through specially designed speakers. It's a sculpture. It's a real-time sculpture where the city is regenerating itself harmoniously, constantly refreshing itself. And it doesn't have to be loud, just a little bit of order and the chaos tunes your mind to hear the world around you like a symphony instead of to hear it as a jarring collection of just rude chaos. So this is open there and it's permanent. What I imagine could be possible, and what I've been planning for the CHERP factory, is to have the factory actually become a harmonious place. It's going to have all kinds of different sounds involved with creating these panels. And it's in a box, like a reverberant box, the shape and size of which it is. But could that be tuned? Could you just think of a factory like an out-of-tune guitar and just tune the strings until it makes a beautiful chord? Well, that's the idea here, is to collect the sounds that are being made in the factory, tune them, and play them back. And it's a combination of capturing the sounds and mitigating them and replacing them with a harmonious version of themselves. So that all the different things, and then you start to listen in a different way. Instead of hearing an impact from a pneumatic on the other side, a little chord arrives and you realize, oh, that little chord means that this particular piece of factory stuff is going to come to me soon. You can start to listen around and hear your whole environment a little bit like an orchestra instead of like a series of jarring sounds. So in this way, I think it's possible to make an operating factory really humane and somewhat musical without being oppressive in any way, but just mildly tuning the environment. And people respond to this. They actually prefer to hear harmonically tuned sounds to just a bunch of noise. It's easier on the brain. And if you go into the science of how people hear, it's much easier for them to hear something that's tuned than a noise, which requires a lot more thought and processing here. So it should make things a bit chill, and it should go beautifully with Peter's work, because Peter's transforming sunlight in real time and breaking it into a spectrum. I'm transforming sound and noise in real time and turning it into harmony. These two things work together to strengthen each other and to create an environment where your senses have been thought about. Somebody's thinking about me, the worker, and trying to make this place nice and trying to make it make sense. And the combination of these things should create a sort of a field of humane concern and make a nice environment for people to work in that actually de-stresses the whole idea of going to work.
Yeah, when you say, Bruce, you're talking about my work, and it makes me realize that, yes, so you could think of the white light from the sun as noise, because actually all the different wavelengths are all jumbled together and they're all canceling out each other. And so what you get is white light. Whereas when you run it through a prism, especially when you use a really high-tech laser prism that I use, then you're getting, you're taking that noise and you're making it into the music of the rainbow, you could say, into something intelligible, meaningful, and resonant, with some really deep part of our psyche. In fact, I had this wonderful meeting with Jonas Salk 6 months or so before he died, and at his home in La Jolla, and I asked him. He was. We were talking about my work, and I showed him a catalog of the project that Bruce and I did in Rome, and I asked him what it was that made the effect so powerful of the solar spectrum on people. And I said, I really like to take credit for it, but I know there's something much more than that. And he said, oh, that has to do with memory. Memory is one of the strongest forces in nature. It tells carbon to be carbon, DNA to be DNA. And the rainbow is a very deep memory for humans. He said it's been coded into our genetic material over millions of years. And seeing a rainbow restores our connection to nature. It restores our physical and psychic functions. And so I think that's why when anybody sees a rainbow in the sky, so I showed that picture the first time around, you get this hit, this sense of awe and beauty. And so according to Salk, that response is coded into our biophysiology, just like, unless there's something wrong with your taste buds, sugar tastes sweet. So if you have color vision, the rainbow has this really powerful effect on your soul. And so when the thing that's so powerful for me about Bruce's work is that the rainbow is in the spectrum is in a certain place in a certain part of the space, and so visual focus goes there. But the beautiful thing about the sound space that Bruce is creating is that it's everywhere. I mean, it has different qualities in different parts of the space, but it's omnipresent and omnidirectional, so that there's this kind of focus of the visual, but then there's this expansion of the aural, and so it's a deeply immersive experience. Whenever I remember when I closed down the installation in Rome, the last thing that I turned off was the sound, and it just felt like the lifeblood was bleeding out of me.
Well, I think that these things do combine in a very nice way. Our senses get so split up in our culture that they get separately marketed, and you can sell one thing to each sense. But the nice thing about this work together with you, Peter, is that we're putting the senses together in a unified and beautiful and calming sort of way that de-splinters the senses in a way. It makes the atmosphere more calm and serene. And I think that we're thinking about the humans in the factory, not just the products that are coming out of the factory. So I think that goes along with the whole holistic approach that CHERP is taking, which I applaud CHERP for. That's one of the things that attracted me in the first place.
Devin, do you want to take a minute and remind people that these projects, we still need to pay for parts and materials and cutting in the roof and things like that?
Yeah, thank you. And maybe we can talk a little bit more about that too. I want to get to some of Athena's murals that she's imagining. Some of the murals are going to be 15 feet high inside the factory on all of these white blank walls that we've got as a huge opportunity. And one of them is going to be our Founders Circle donor wall. It will be a mural that will be at least 15 by 15 feet high. And we are putting everybody's name on this mural who have donated anything in terms of time, or we have lots of students that give us $5 and $10. And all of the names, we want to see as many names from our outreach and communities all the way across the country represented on that wall. And so every donation, large or small, will end up with your name on the Founders Circle of the first prototype factory before we launch throughout the rest of the country.
We also have a question from Lance Stokes. Will the bright lighting in the factory impact the spectrum art of Peter Erskine? Devin?
I guess that's a question I could talk about.
Or,
Yeah, ambient light is always a part of my work. So we're going to work with the lighting. There's task lighting that, you know, has to be around the machines and things. And so we're actually working in the lighting design of the technical requirements of the factory and going to be able to play with that along with the spectrum. So Bruce and I think of this as a kind of a beta test. You know, we're going to find out lots of things about what it would be like to do things in other CHERP factories by just experimenting and changing things around as things get up to speed. So it's a good question. And what I'd suggest is come early when the factory opens, and then come later after we've tuned some things, and you'll find it'll be quite different.
And also I'd like to direct a question to Athena. Athena, you were one of the first artists I reached out to because you have this fabulous talent for combining text and art and making nonsensical out of the scientific world and including environmental nature in your work. And do you want to speak to that, like, and how you're going to be engaging with that, and why you started doing that?
Sure, that's a good question. Really, all you have to know about me as an artist is that, to me, art is a language. Every different form of it, whether it's poetry or painting or installation, it doesn't matter. All of it is still language. Style is language, the way things are done at certain times in history. It's all communicating what a community is about. So incorporating those things, excuse me, shows the places that they come together, the meeting points. And I think that the communicating the layers of that, like the layers of community in the case of the factory, where you have local community and you have all of these different elements from the extended community, all this imagination of what the factory space can be, and all those voices combined is far more interesting than any single layer of that.
Thank you. Beautiful. We also have a question, and that's from Jason. Are there some noises that are so loud it will interfere or overwhelm with what we're trying to do within the factory? If some of the noises are very loud, how do we deal with that?
Well, nothing that I will do there will be loud at all. It just, harmony creates order even when it's played back very softly. In terms of the loudness of the gear itself that's producing the work, we're definitely going to try to isolate that sound put it on vibration dampening in current state-of-the-art noise reduction at the source. And we're also going to make some clouds above each work area that contain lighting and mitigate sound. So this approach is a combination of mitigation of sound at the source and then transforming of the sounds into things that the ears like to hear. And that can be done very quietly. It doesn't have to be loud to be functional. In fact, it works in the background quite beautifully.
I think if you did have a loud sound, it would also be musical because Bruce always gets these overtone. And so what sounds like a big noise actually would be a big, ah. Is that right, Bruce? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's pretty true. You just start to hear everything around you more musically, and it helps your mind process all of the things that are happening around you in a musical way, which is a little less taxing on the brain, a little calmer.
And I'd just like to interject here too that all these projects still need to be funded. We've raised about $765 tonight, and our goal for tonight is $5,000. So if you can help, if 200 people give $5, that's or maybe you could email your friends, share our GoFundMe page with your friends. 100 people giving $5 is a lot of money. I have another question from Dr. Enrique. These artist prototypes in the factory simulating sight and sound, can smell be used first thing in the morning to stimulate another sense upon the opening of the doors to the factory? Have any of you ever done that?
Coffee.
Exactly.
Maybe our coffee on automatic too.
Push the button, yeah, get the coffee smell.
Have an automatic coffee maker.
Sounds like you watched Harold and Maude. the sense sculpture.
We have another fun question. What about starting a CHERP softball, bowling, petanque team? The photons. I'm envisioning the design for team uniforms now. Group exercise builds community, improved health. Like our minds are going crazy here. We are, we hope to have a community garden. A softball team sounds great. So we don't have any limits. Let's be limitless in our ideas. Let's enrich our community, each other, and create a factory model that we can replicate around the country, creating jobs, working for social justice, reducing greenhouse gases.
One of the things that speaks to that is that we are going to have a professional volunteer program where people can sign up to come in the factory and work alongside the factory workers that will be chosen from disadvantaged demographics in the community to give them a leg up in learning job skills. But we're also imagining that working alongside them will be the mayor of Pomona and Claremont and the city council and business people and academics and professors and householders in general that can come in and work alongside and even provide some mentorship to all of the factory workers. So we're hoping to create a feeling inside the factory that's reflective of a vibrant community on the outside of the factory, so that it's a lively and permeable exchange of culture and ideas and quite frankly, emotional support.
One thing about the model that really appealed to me, or the CHERP model, is not only is the factory going to be hiring, I don't know, what's it, 15 people or something on three shifts. So that's that employment loop, but also the people, the way these panels get on the roofs is that local people will be employed, low income people, marginalized people will be employed, learn how to do all this installation stuff. And then, as I understand it, the people who get these panels, they get them for free.
Yeah, they get, yes, they get
They get
the
them for
panels
free,
and or
and
the
then
energy
and
for
then that
free.
generates all this electricity. This saves $100 or something on their power bill every month, and then $5 million, something like that, is calculated to go back into the local Pomona economy, you know, to be spent, you know, just to, so you get this wonderful feedback loop of it's really talking about spreading all this concentrated wealth around, because doesn't a lot of the money come from the California carbon tax, the initial jolt that you're doing the?
Yeah, the initial money is coming from the state of California as a line item budget. And when you're talking, it's interesting, we're talking harmonics here. And we've always been talking about the economic model that we're deploying as being a virtuous cycle, recirculating dollars and profit dollars back into the local economy as often as possible. And so it is kind of a harmonic convergence in that sense, that every 6,000 households that we supply with energy will refunnel and recirculate $6.5 million a year back into the local economy, away from the utilities, because it's currently leaving the economy of a local community and being burned up every month, literally. So it's an extraordinary regenerative and kind of, using the language of the evening, you know, a beautiful harmony to help rebuild our local communities.
And I think that idea of accelerating the money turning over, one of the other places it doesn't go is into the pockets of the shareholders of the utilities. You know, so this money is moving faster and faster. Slow money is money that's sitting in the pockets of the utility investors. Fast money is the money that's being spent and turned around in the town itself. You know, and that's good money in my opinion.
Hey, Devin, for the people, since we're, by my watch, a little over on time here, for the people who are tuning in tonight who don't really know what CHERP is, I'm assuming that, Devin, you've got the quickest, most compact, well thought out way of describing what CHERP does.
Well, yes, we can conclude on that, because you're right. We wanted to get everybody out by 5:50, so we have 3 minutes. And I just wanted to say thank you for everybody. Continue to please go to the GoFundMe campaign. One way to think about this is, if 25 people committed to getting 5 friends together of $200 each, we would be at $25,000 immediately. And what it does is it also spreads the network, which is really what we're interested in. However much you give, we want to have you included in our foundation and our base. And we want to spread the word. But essentially what we are doing here now is we're combining cutting edge technology with a nonprofit business model to open the first nonprofit solar panel assembly factory in the world, and to prove that we actually can make a solar panel, which is only 10 parts, in the United States, and not send billions of dollars overseas to China. But then the real goal here is to create the prototype for these micro factories that then we can now replicate across the country. So we're now in conversation with 2 different cities in New Jersey. We're in conversation with a city in West Virginia, in coal country. We're in conversation with about 8 cities in California and 2 cities in Detroit. So we are really now in a vibrant conversation with many people around the country who get this model. And we're very excited that we're on the verge of replicating and placing microfactories in very disadvantaged communities across the country, so that we can start helping to address the problem of, here in California, having 250,000 people living under bridges in California in 2020. So thank you all for being with us tonight. Thank you to the entire panel. You all have been inspiring us for the last several months as you've been designing these pieces of art. We're grateful to you. You inspire us. You are leading us forward. And thank you all tonight who've climbed on board and spent these last 45 minutes with us. And we'll send you off into the evening.
Yeah, and thank you for your donations. We've raised about over $1,200. Thank you for all your donations. And there are some questions we didn't get answered, and perhaps we can put that on our website, CHERP. What's our website, Devin? CHERP.
LGP.org. CHERPLGP.org.
.org, and answer the rest of your questions in that. Thank you all so much. You're fabulous. Thank you for joining our conversation tonight.
Hey, Tommy, you want to strum us out?
Yeah.
Everyone, okay, goodbye, everyone. Thank you.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for coming.
Love you all. Thanks,
you.
Athena.
Thanks, Tommy. Thanks, Mary. Thanks, everybody out there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Night.
There's a wolf behind you.
I know. Do you see I've got one on each shoulder?
Yeah.
I didn't see the other one.
See, I'm like in the middle. I got, yeah. Had to have,
That looks so cool.
have the bases covered.
You should put a different painting behind you every time. Do you remember when your tiger was like back here?
I do.
Tommy, there's still a few people on, and I don't know if they're listening or not, but I didn't get to the question. I loved it when you mentioned the other day when you were talking about how music moves us. And I'm wondering if you could talk about that a little bit. Why does music move us? Why do you think it's important?
Well, I feel that music reminds us that we are always moving. And in these days when it's so hard sometimes to focus because of the glut of information, music can make focusing fun and feel very natural. And I think, and there's like, I love that church is cross-pollinating the different disciplines and passions, and music is not so separate from the smell, the visual, it's really all the same thing. And so we should be open to every aspect of experience, not only for people, but for dogs and birds and insects and everything, the whole sonic light, smell of everything. And so I'm sort of rambling, but I'm new to this group, but I love you all. I've really enjoyed this.
Thank you. It's so nice to have you with us, joining us.
Yeah.
Athena, there's still a few people on, and I'm just wondering if something was sparked in your head that you wanted to add before we all sign off.
I saw a couple questions about, there's several questions about children and their involvement, and that is all under works. And just because we're out of time, yes, there will be ways for children to be involved in more than one regard. And we're still working all that out. And of course, with COVID, like one of the questions is asking about children being in the factory space. Right now, that can happen at the DAW, but then of course, we have COVID issues. So these things, we'll work them out over time. But absolutely, that's the plan, to have local artists of all ages